everyone, I am Ritika and I welcome you all once again to our LinkedIn Live session on 2020 X Vision Ignite Your Revenue Engine X Sector Part 2. Before we start our session, I request all the participants to please mention their name and their location in the comment section. We're also going to have a Q&A at the end of the session. In case you have missed watching our past session or you want to rewatch it or you want to share it to your colleagues, you can visit our YouTube channel and watch the on-demand videos over there. I'll post a link to our YouTube channel in the comment section shortly. So I think we should get started because we have an incredible line of speakers for today's session who will be sharing their expertise and insights on this evolving topic. Over to you, Vishwendra.
Thank you, Ritika. Thank you so much. So just quickly want to also talk about some of the session that we did. We began a series on 2020 X Vision, and we completed almost like 9 sessions as part of this. Now we are in on the next session, which is on Ignite Your Revenue Engine X Factor, which is part 2. We had a part 1 session last month, and this month we intend to cover some more granular revenue engine frameworks in continuation to our session last time. So before I invite my speakers, I have some announcements. One is this go-to-market expert co-pilot that we launched, and this is primarily for founders and growth leaders, so they can access this go-to-market expert on ChatGPT marketplace. People who have ChatGPT plus access, they can have complimentary access to expert go-to-market expert, and they can use this co-pilot to build their go-to-market strategy on the basis of the details that they provide, either in terms of their product or offering, their target market or pricing, and even more granular details about your market. So this go-to-market will help you to build your strategy on the basis of considering your buyer personas, building your sales messaging, then also building BTM motions, which are on the basis of the key effective channels that can be relevant for your product, and then it will also suggest some sales processes and recommendations on pricing. So do test out our go-to-market expert. You can also use it as a virtual coach, as a virtual potential customer. So you can define your customer and then test out your sales messaging. And this entire test can be done in a very safe environment. So do test out our go-to-market expert and share feedback with us. Other announcement is we have our Growth Pro community that we've launched. So this Growth Pro community has multiple advantages for people who will be joining us. One is, of course, you will have access to a couple of co-pilots. Then you will have access to exclusive insights that are, expert leaders and industry network they are sharing. And apart from that, you can also grow your network. You can also become a growth mentor and speak at Growth Sutra leadership sessions, build your personal brand, and mentor Growth Pro community. You can also get some project referrals from there. So submit your request on growthsutra.pro, and we'll look into your request and we'll connect with you shortly. So coming back to the session, let me now invite my co-speakers. We have Dennis Roman, who's the founder of Roman's Numbers. We have Sandeep Mukherjee, he's the director of Ayata Commerce. And we also have Paras, he's the founder and CEO of AccuX. I would request each of the speakers to talk about themselves and share their preliminary insights on this session.
Thanks, Vish. It's Dennis. Thanks, Vish. Dennis here. Hey, I just want to make sure the recording has started, Vish. I wasn't sure it had, but anyhow, Dennis Roman here. I call myself the stock doc because my primary business is researching the stock market and individual companies to help sales teams figure out which companies to go after and marketing teams to figure out what messages they should use when they go after those companies. So the stock doc. I've had the good fortune to work for some of the largest technology companies in the world. And from that, I'm going to be stressing my experience with RevOps today, because that's one of the primary places where RevOps is utilized in large organizations. Back to you, Vish.
Thank you, Dennis. Thank you so much. Sandeep, you want to go next?
Yeah, thanks, Vish. Hi, this is Sandeep. I'm working with IATACOM as and is responsible for the Asia market for our consulting growth. Have been in the industry for around 27 plus years, almost 20 years now. Working around the world with primarily with retailers and manufacturers, as the two primary industries, and in the areas of digital transformation, customer experience management, and supply chain. So those are my key areas. Look forward towards a very enthralling as well as an engaging session today. And thanks, Vish, for giving us this platform. Over to you, Vish.
Thank you, Sandeep. Thank you so much for your patronage. This is the second time when we have Sandeep on this session, and I'm sure we are going to have a lot of great insights from him. Paras?
Sure. So, Paras this side, I'm the founder and the CEO at AQX. It's been a 2 year long journey with AQX for now. I've been in the industry for the last 5 years. You could have seen my profile as well. At the same time, looking at my background, you would have known what we exactly are doing at AQX. At the same time, my expertise lies in user acquisition. So, at this platform, I would also be sharing about my GTM strategy that I used in order to unlock huge growth that I did for AQX.
Thank you, Paras. While Paras is the youngest of all the speakers, but he is kind of involved in a couple of real-time projects, especially on attribution and modeling, and that's what he would be covering. But we always see to the point that we have, a founder or CEO joins, especially from the market, and share their deeper insights in terms of their learning, in terms of the knowledge that they have gained after working with various customers. So thank you, Paras, for joining today's session. I'd like to quickly set the context, how we have structured our session for today. We have so I'll try to quickly cover some of the aspects from our last session, the revenue frameworks that we talked about. But we are going to cover three revenue engines in this session. One is revenue ops, which is around achieving full funnel accountability, data visibility, and revenue predictability. So that's going to be covered by Dennis Roman. He already talked about marketing and investment side of it. So there are two brains which are coming in one. Customer value optimization is around harnessing higher satisfaction, loyalty for profit gold mine. So that will be covered by Sandeep. And attribution modeling, as Paras already talked about this, so he will be talking about attribution modeling, and he'll share some examples as well. Post these three sessions, then we are going to have a panel Q&A. So if you have any questions for the speaker, do share those questions in the comment box so that we can pick and we can ask these questions to our speakers. And our intention is to make this session as engaging as possible for all of us. So while our speakers are sharing their insights, it will be good to kind of question them, or ask relevant questions which you have, which you are facing in your ecosystem. So let me quickly begin with some of the slides that I've put together. I believe uncertainty is part of business for everyone. For all the businesses, and we cannot have any business without uncertainty. Now, uncertainty can be in various shapes. It can be a clear enough future. So especially for companies like who are selling fintech solution, to retailers. Maybe they have a very clear enough future. They can forecast and they can work out their model to target right customers. But if we have a crypto powered fintech solution, then it could actually become a lot of ambiguity around your business. So there could be, because you may not have enough data in terms of how crypto powered fintech solution can be leveraged by retailers. So that's where the uncertainty would come into play. But obviously, there are these scenarios which every business has to go through, and there could be three strategic postures that were shared by HBR. This actually I picked it from HBR article from 1997, and these three postures can be shape the future, adapt to the future, and reserve the right to play. So I think for most of the businesses, or for most of the people who would be joining today, I think they would be more interested in adapt to the future and reserve the right to play. And that's what we are going to cover today when we talk about revenue engine, because we see navigating through this uncertainty is very important, that you have a very robust engine that is resilient, and at the same time it provides you a competitive edge. So it should act as a business compass for you when you are navigating this uncertain terrain. I talked about, we actually covered some of the frameworks in our past sessions. I'll quickly cover, which are those frameworks. So we talked about sales funnel. It was 2 months back, and the sales funnel framework is the most popular. It talks about clear. I mean, it is within the scenario of clear sales process in its stages. Then we talked about account-based marketing in our last session. It was covered by Dennis. We had land and expand revenue engine, which was focused on customer adoption and then on upselling and cross-selling. We also had growth hacking framework, which is primarily for startups and small mid-sized companies, wherein they are seeking rapid growth, rapid customer acquisition, and there is a lot of experimentation which is needed for them to survive in the market. So this session we would be talking about revenue ops, revenue operations framework, which is around complex sales process, mature data capabilities, then customer value optimization and attribution modeling, as we talked about. There are other models that I shared earlier, which is inbound marketing framework and predictable revenue framework. We won't be covering that today because of paucity of time. Maybe in our subsequent sessions we may cover, but this session will just focus on three models. So without taking much time, let me invite Dennis, who will be talking about revenue ops. And as Dennis already introduced, he's a marketing maven, mastering Wall Street concepts and C-level messaging. His data-driven strategies are the secret behind the success of sales and marketing programs for B2B technology companies, ensuring alignment with C-level goals. Dennis, I'm going to add your slides here.
Okay, Vish, thank you. That was a very good lead-in. I thought your coverage of our last session and how it led directly to this one, I thought it was quite excellent. So, as is my wont, most of my slides are completely devoid of adjectives, gerunds, participles, and similar words. I am a big guy who loves nouns and verbs, and I preach that because the fewer adjectives you have in your content, the better, in my opinion. If you say you're the best at, if you say you have the best one of anything, you're not going to be believed. Anyhow, to get into the slides, my business is sales enablement, and I do that through financial analysis. I help the sales teams figure out which accounts to go after and even which accounts to potentially avoid. And I help the marketing team to figure out what messaging to use, again, using financial analysis. And all my contact information is here. Okay, so here's a picture of a company. Now, this could be a company that Paras is going after, or Sandeep is going after, or Vish is going after, but there's a company. And as the companies begin to get bigger, they definitely get more complex. it's almost synonymous, right? It's almost redundant to have to put those two words together. The bigger they get, it's not like a bigger balloon. The bigger they get, the more complex they get. And the more big and complex a company gets, the greater the need for what has been titled a RevOps framework, meaning it's not as nearly as relevant as you go down the market in size of company as it is so relevant as you go up the size. And not only is the need greater as you go up, it's not going to be any surprise to anyone. So is the difficulty of pulling it off. So a RevOps starts with the first step. And in my opinion, the first step is actually the hardest one of all. And it's characterized by this statement. Sorry about that. A revenue ops framework primarily achieves efficiency. That's what it's going after, efficiency. And it does this by integrating marketing, sales, and customer success to streamline the operations and improve revenue growth using common goals and metrics and KPIs. That is a motherhood statement, but that pretty much sums up what RevOps is all about. And that's the good news. We can actually define what the first step is. And you can understand why I keep harping on the fact that the bigger the company, the more complex the company, and the more difficult it is to integrate marketing and sales, beyond which ought to be fairly uncomplicated. But considering the fact that sales' primary objective is the customers, that's it. That's who they're working for. That's who they're selling to. That's who they're trying to satisfy. That's who they're trying to get the corporation to bend its offerings all the time to fit a particular niche market. I could have sold $1 million deal if our thing or our service only did this. They're perpetually forcing the company to be of service to the customers, which is a wonderful thing to be doing, in my opinion. On the other hand, marketing's primary objective is the interest of the brand. That doesn't mean they don't care about customers, but their job is the brand. And anything that enhances the brand is what they're working towards. And where they connect would be get a happy customer, get them in a video. Marketing gets them in a video and put it up on the website. That's the most uncomplicated example, often very hard to accomplish. And I want you to just look at my oxen. Okay, I got 2 oxen yoked to the corporation. And as you look at this, and as anybody looks at a corporate org structure or org chart or anything, this looks like it's working okay. Big, mighty, hefty oxen. Grrr, giant corporation are pulling down the track. But as you get closer to the visual, you will notice that the oxens are not actually pulling 100% in the same direction. They're off a little bit. They're trying to pull the wagon, not in opposite directions, but in a different direction. Because one of them is working for the customer and one of them is working for the brand. Neither is wrong, but how do you get them pulling in the same direction when you have this situation on your hands, customer and brand, and never, ever, never in a large corporation does sales and marketing ever, ever, ever report to the same person. Never happens. The smaller the company, the more likely they do. The larger the company, the more likely they don't. So how do we know efficiency when we see it? And I'm just about done now. Okay. TCS, their total revenue, 29 billion with 615 employees. Their revenue per employee, otherwise known as efficiency, is $47,000. So for all their employees, divided into all their revenue, it comes out to $47,000, 47,000 bucks. Okay, and you look at this, but unless you orient it towards something, you don't know whether that's good, bad, or indifferent. Now, I'm sure there's companies who have lower RPE and higher P, and I know one. How about this one? Infosys. Their total revenue is only, I'd say that tongue in cheek, 18 billion. When you look at TCS, it's 28 billion, right? And they're doing it with approximately half the employees. Okay, but half the employees isn't generating half of what TCS is generating. It's generating more than half. So that means their revenue per employee is higher. That's as simple as it gets. This is efficiency, if you will, on parade. And it's hard to achieve, but it delivers outside rewards. Okay, Vish, that's my quickie. I know we got a lot more goodness to cover today, so that's it from me.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dennis. In fact, thank you for all the slides and the insights that you shared by giving examples. So you see RP as one of the key metric that organizations should track as part of their revenue ops, or they should stick to their traditional matrices, which are churn rate or conversion rates or ARRs. What would you recommend?
So not to be too radical about this, nobody is really responsible to create happy customers. I mean, it's like a byproduct. And yet, out of the three foundations of why a company exists, to use its corporate capital, whatever that is, money, time, personnel, whatever, to use its corporate capital to generate revenue and create customer satisfaction. Those are the three primary building blocks of every company in the world. And yet that third one to create customer satisfaction isn't actually recognized as a department, as a function, there's nobody leading it. Nobody has ultimate. Just one quickly. I'm sorry. I hate to tell you the story. I worked at HP. Carly Fiorina, who eventually ran for president, she came in and joined the company as the CEO. She went all over the world and interviewed all of the department and line of business heads for HP everywhere in the world. And after 3 months, she came back to the auditorium, brought them all into of all the brands that TCS has that these people had identified as their job, and said, which brand isn't on the slide? HP. HP was not on that slide because not one person she talked to in the entire company said, I'm responsible for the HP brand. Nobody felt that responsibility. They only cared about their piece of the universe. So there's some way to introduce, we have a happy customer, and that happy customer may in fact not be creating the most revenue, but believe me, a happy customer generates outsized returns by being willing to speak about the company in glowing terms. All right, that's an example. Back to you.
Okay, no, thank you, Dennis. I just want to also ask one more question. So,
Yeah.
when we look at this journey, right, order to cash, and here finance also kind of play a very critical role. And sometimes there are disconnects between sales and finance, especially when you're sales quoting some numbers while finance is not agreeing. So do you think revenue ops could also bridge the gap between finance and sales through this?
That's a good question. When there was a transition not too many years ago at TCS, and I guess people probably know by now, I used to work there for 15 years. They actually promoted the CFO to CEO. Now you would think, okay, well, what's the CFO's job? His job or her job is to say no. That's their job, is to say no. The more often they say no, they think the better success they're creating for the company. You got to get that person to say yes, right? And so using the corporate resources, not necessarily to build a new building, but to create customer intimacy, customer access. The more customers you attract, the more financially successful you're going to be. It's a fact of life. And having a principal say no all the time is not probably the right approach to that.
I agree. I agree. So yeah, that's the reason it's kind of critical to have finance also as part of your team. And I see when we talk about revenue ops, this has been also integrated with not only sales ops but finance ops, so that there are the entire process is streamlined and there are no disconnects by any of the key stakeholders. But thank you so much for thank you, Dennis, for sharing those insights. I may have some more questions, but I'm going to ask those questions later on. Let me now invite Sandeep, as he's going to be talking about customer value optimization. Dennis already talked about a lot in terms of customer is the center, is the stakeholder which is being changed by sales. So Sandeep would be talking about customer value optimization. Let me quickly mention that Sandeep has 26 plus years of experience in accelerating revenue growth and delivering digital transformation solutions. He is specialized in B2B sales and consulting. He excelled in driving growth through strategies, CXM, InfoX, and OPEX solutions across SaaS, cloud, and on-premise models. I think he talked about some of these aspects earlier, but I just thought to reiterate some of these. So, Sandeep, over to you.
Thanks, Vishwendra. Thanks for the intro. I definitely try to justify that. It just help me to understand if my slides are visible right here. Is it visible?
Yeah.
My slide?
Yes.
Okay. I think customer value optimization. Yeah. Quite interesting for the organization, and more the digital era, the more the different channels an organization is selling their products or services, the more important the CVO, the customer value optimization, has become. Right now, let me start with today's session of mine with an analogy. Now, as we know that Mr. Einstein stopped wearing socks, and the reason and the logic was that he could save hours of his life and kind of utilize those hours in more productivity and more productive work. Right, that was his philosophy, that was his thought. Right. I'm sure many of you would be aware of it. But in today's world, the philanthropy of the business is that we could do it. We could miss out on one part of our business attribute, which is a customer facing attribute, if we are not judged as a lack of professionalism. But what happens is that in today's world is that we need to turn our scrutinizing gaze, right? And we need to look into every aspect. And because we want to optimize on one most important metric to a business called customer value. And that's why we are going to talk about today. How do you optimize that one most important metric to a business, which is customer value? And that's where we don't have an option like Mr. Einstein did of not wearing a socks. And we need to look into, scrutinize into every aspect of our business facing that important object called customer in our business. Now, to put a definition, and we can have definitions from different angles, but what is really is, we all are aware of a phenomena called customer lifetime value. It's the revenue that you get from the customer minus the customer acquisition cost, as well as also the cost of servicing that customer. So that gives you customer lifetime value. Now, how customer value optimization all talks about a process, a framework, that how do you maximize that CLTV or CLV of your existing customers. And how do you do that? You enrich their experience. You enrich their experience, any channel that they touch you or your brand, and then you turn them to a base of high value customers. Now, in our business world, we have three levels of customers: low, medium, and high value customers. High value customers are those who kind of bring maximum revenue and margin to your brand. They buy more every time. Probably, they also buy of the higher value. The average order value is more, and they also add as Dennis was mentioning, they also add lot of other rewarding facts to your brands. For example, they talk good about your brands, like they, today's world, you have this customer generated or user generated content, UGC, which you call. So basically they become the philosophers, the guides, as well as the evangelizers of your brand, right? That's what they do. So primarily, if you do customer value optimization well, you are basically optimizing on every stage of customer life cycle. And what it does is it boosts the brand loyalty, and in long term it brings the profitability to your brand. The question is CVO important for business growth? Let's look at some quotes and some figures from the industry. The industry says, various studies says, that if you increase the customer loyalty by just 5%, it can even boost profit from 25 to 95%. Imagine, that's the impact, that the percolating chain reaction impact that you get from your customer loyalty. And when you try to increase your customer loyalty, you need to work hard on your CVO, or customer value optimization. That's where you can increase the loyalty factor of your customer. Customers with a good experience, they're more likely, 3.5 times more likely to repurchase, as well as 5 times more likely to recommend your company, right? Your brand, your product, to friends, to relatives, and everyone, right? Particularly if you see countries like India, we go to brands basic, of verbal propaganda, and that's where your CVO will come to your rescue and help you to grow your brand, right? If you see, some other figures, 96% of customers see the customer service as the most crucial aspect of the brand loyalty, right? They don't stop, because if you see those high value customers, you are looking towards segment who are not just stopping their journey after buying the product from you, they're actually starting their journey off when they are buying a product from you, right? So that's why it's customer service, post purchase customer service is extremely important for your brand. It's almost 96% of consumers believes that that's most important, and 80% of consumer are, your brands are likely to more outperform competitors. So if you are giving a lot of importance, a lot of focus on your customer experience, then Forrester says that 80% chance that you will be outperforming your competitors, right? I believe those figures are quite compelling, and to make us understand that your CVO is quite important and interesting for your business growth. Now, the question is, how do you calculate CVO growth? Now, this is, I've been working in this, arena for some time, and I could find Jay Abraham's 3 growth pillars as the most appropriate ones, right? And what it talks about basically 3 aspects. It says increase the number of customers, right? The customers are who are coming onto your website and who are also converting on your channel. I'm taking website as an example. It can be a physical channel, it can be a digital channel, it doesn't matter. But number of customers means that they are visiting you on that channel and they are converting. Second growth pillar talks about increasing the average transaction value per customer, both the monetary value and average order value. You need to increase that for sure. And the third one is the number of transactions per customer, which is called frequency, right? There is also an RFM model, which I'll not touch today. Probably in some other session I'll touch. That's most interesting, and the guiding principle for this formula growth. Now, if I turn to that 3 pillars into a formula, it comes out like this. If you multiply the customers, which is traffic, multiplied by the conversion rate, if you multiply customers by the ratio of CLV, customer life cycle value, which I mentioned earlier, and the customer acquisition cost, you actually get the growth. This is what the real growth mantra is. If you follow this, as I said, with a lot of testing with different formulas, I found this most appropriate measuring your customer value growth or CVO growth, right? Now, how to do it? It's pretty simple. I've kind of again, studied these particular domain, and what I found that there could be simple these 7 steps. Of course, depends on the kind of product or services that you are into, in which geography you are working on, what kind of customer segments that you are working on, right? So it depends on a lot of factors, but somewhere you need to start. So these are the 7 steps or 7 process as per my understanding, best of my understanding, right? The first one is you need to find the fit. So you need to find where your product fits and what kind of market you are fitting in, right? That's the first step. That's very important. So you need to answer a very simple question. What's the differentiator that your product brings in to a segment of customer in that market segment, and what is the problem of a customer that your product is solving. That's where you'd fit, kinds of, in a simple formula, if you can maximize the gap with the satisfied, satisfied mentality of your customers before and after using a product, that's where you are success, have got a great fit. The next step is that it's important to find out the target traffic, right? So you will be spending a lot of money in your marketing, as Dennis was talking about marketing and sales, right? Alignment, I agree with him. You'll be spending a lot of money, a lot of efforts on your different marketing channels, but it's important over a time period, give some time to your business, give time to your marketing, marketing initiatives to work on, and try to find out where your traffic, the effective traffic is coming up. So of course that you can only substantiate after some time, when you get some conversions, when you get some sales, when you get some repeated sales. But that's more important. You need to find out where your actual traffic is coming up, right? Now, third one is that you need to use some lead magnets, right? For example, I've seen many beauty products in India today giving free products. I was seeing the Plum as a product, for an example, in India. They were giving some free lipsticks for women, and just for an exchange of contact info. And that's where you need to use your lead magnets. You have to also keep one thing in mind, that your lead magnet should be aligned to your brand, whatever you are giving, right? Because this is just the beginning. This is where you are kind of gathering the direct contact, so that you can start direct marketing and can push your the right traffic to the right funnel of CVO, to the next funnel or next step of CVO. And the next step is that you need to give up low free product offer. And that's where the first time you're converting leads into your paying customers. So this is a product which will kind of be aligned with your brand value, with your brand message, because beyond this or after this, you would need to check that one time paying customer to repetitively paying customer. And that's where this product offer or tripwire is extremely important. And that's how we move to the next step, where you have to give the core offer, right? Which is your flagship product or services of the business. That's where kind of your brand is made in the market. That's where your brand is known, recognized in the market. And that is where you get to the core offer, right? And along with the core offer, you need to provide a profit maximizer, which are kind of you can call them upsell, cross sell, might be also some incentives to your customer in terms of user generated content, particularly for women brands. It's important, and that's where a profit maximizer will come handy. And the last one is that you need to again push your existing customers to the start of the CVO channel where they have started. For example, again a tripwire or at least a core offer. They want to buy that, right? So that's where the 7 steps are correlated with each other. And as I said, my experience says that if we do these things correctly as per your brand, as I was mentioned in the beginning, there's a high probability that you will see a remarkable CVO growth. Now the question is, why do I do CVO? And that brings me to the last section of my session. It's first, increased customer loyalty. It's a no-brainer, right? Because you are, as you saw in the 7 steps, you are making the customer again and again going through the CVO funnel. Every time the customer goes to the CVO funnel, the loyalty portion of the customer will increase much better. Of course, what you're doing is that in that whole process, you are deducing higher customer lifetime value, as we can see, right? And in long term, it will give you an increased profitability for your brand, right? Because at the end of the day, you need to sustain, you need to grow, right? So you need to give you a sustained growth. And it, of course, is going to improve your customer satisfaction, because your customer, if you're giving focus to your CVO, you are actually giving focus to your customer experience at every stage of the CVO, and that's where you will have improved customer satisfaction. And you have, so as a resultant, or one of the resultant of CVO, you will come to know where you need to spend on your marketing, right? Which strategies of marketing are working, and that's why it will help you to have your more effective marketing strategies. And hence, at the end of the day, if you map all of them, you can go to your CEO or the board and say, hey, you know what? By optimizing customer value, I'm actually contributing to improve business performance, right? So that's kind of from my side. Vishwendra, over to you.
Thank you, Sandeep. Thank you so much for sharing these 7 steps and the drivers, the growth drivers that you talked about. I think this was very interesting. If we, talk about, say, for a small and mid-sized company, they may not have that many resources. Do you recommend they need to follow those 7 steps, or they can optimize certain steps and pick and choose which can drive growth for them?
Yeah, very interestingly, I would say rather than the size of the company, we should look into what kind of merchandising they're into, right? As I was giving an example, even if let's say for a personal care beauty product, for an example, right? There, or even if a brand is starting as a luxury brand, there I think CVO has got an immense interest and importance, right? So even though there might not be an enterprise size, but those 7 steps become very important for them, because they need they need repetitive customers, and they need to have those customers to buy again and again. And that's where the mool mantra is for their success, because they are very niche. Then personal care brand, they don't want to lose a customer who has already liked a personal care or beauty product, and that's the reason why they should be going on. For example, but on the other hand, for example, if a player is starting on grocery, right, that might not be important to follow all the CVOs, because honestly speaking, my experience is, particularly in India, grocery, the loyalty terms doesn't have a lot of value in grocery. Allow me to say that, but I don't pardon to those audience who love a particular grocery brand to go and buy again and again. With all due respect to them, but my experience says, my limited experience says, there's not true loyalty for a grocery brand, right? And so that's where I would like to say that it's not about the size of the business, rather than, as I said in the beginning, which merchandising segments you're playing and which markets, which niche customers you're targeting.
You also talked about lead magnets, the offering free lipsticks. Do you think those lead magnets can actually drive more conversions as compared to? Means you have to also think about lead magnets, right? What kind of lead magnet would work for my customer? So how do
You
you
are right.
kind of how an organization should decide what lead magnet would work and would grab more attention? So how do you assess and pinpoint that?
Right. That's so. See, when it comes to a digital channel, it becomes a little bit easier, honestly speaking. And I'll tell you how do we do that, or how I've helped brands do that. We basically monitor the behavior of a visitor on a web channel. For an example, if I take the same example, I think I was referring to the MyGlam as a as a brand at that point of time, and I took that example of offering free lipsticks. So what we can do is that you can actually kind of check and have an understanding that on your website which products or which sections some bunch of customers, some segment of customers are spending time on. That will give you a fair idea. That's one of the not the only factor, but the one of the factor that will give you an idea that which products might are catching more attention for your visiting customers, right? Probably other might be definitely the response to your marketing campaign. For example, you have sent digital marketing campaign, and when you are sending campaigns for the lipsticks, particularly on one particular category of lipsticks, let's say matte, daytime, long lasting, etc., you are getting response from the working women. You know that the working women are liking it, right? So when when a working woman is actually coming up onto your digital channel or your shop, you talk about such a lipstick rather than talking about a glazy one or a zazzy one, for an example. So you have mechanisms to find out where your customers are showing more interest in your categories, which products, and then accordingly you should choose, as I said also in my presentation, the right product, and B, it should also align the philosophy of your brand. It just should not be that you are just throwing a lead magnet just to capture contact, because what will happen is that probably will get some contacts, but you will not, you remember the next step in the CVO, you will not get them in a repetitive buying customer. You will not have them.
Exactly. Yeah. So thank you so much, Sandeep. I'll come back to you again, but let me invite Paris. who is going to talk about attribution modeling. Paras, over to you.
Sure. Let me know once my screen is visible.
Yeah, your screen. I'm just adding it to. Can you see the screen?
Perfect. Yeah, yeah. Great. So primarily, I'll first talk about the technology that we have, because of this, you'll be able to know what exactly attribution means, alongside why this is an enhanced technology to have attribution into place. So primarily, AQX is a patent pending technology which does not rely on cookies. What it does is it identifies website visitors, even if they're coming from different browsers, incognito, different modes, different network altogether. And what we do is we have this proprietary algorithm in place which captures more than 100 parameters while a visitor is browsing any website. And it captures and identifies with basis a unified identity that is created for a universe of 281 billion identities into place into a system that can fit in. We have multiple integrations into place with the help of which we are able to capture all the data of these visitors, and we are able to generate a unified identity. So that's the basic tech. You can just consider it to be like a Aadhaar that we are creating for all the visitors that are on website across the globe. In simple words, now the problem statement that we are solving as a brand is primarily, if you look at all the websites, be it an e-commerce, be it a B2B or a B2C website, which is for lead generation, most of the users are anonymous. So 97% visitors remain anonymous. Only few of them are converting. But at the same time, website being a very premier real estate digital asset of any brand, it is meant to have high quality audience in place. So brand tend to have say 10-15% as well, but most of the brand lie in this range. And there is where exactly the AQX solutions comes into play, which helps you turn these anonymous visitors into revenue. So I'll just talk about it later as well, but first let me cover the attribution aspect, because that's the primary thing for which we are here to discuss. So since Sandeep also mentioned a lot of things about optimizing the lifetime value across the value chain of these users while they're on the platform, from the initial sale to having recurring sale into place, then improving the ticket size of all the purchases that they are making on a recurring level, that is enhancing the overall LTV of the business. Now in order to understand all that, it is very much important to measure those parameters, because it is rightly said that what is not defined, it can't be measured, and what cannot be measured, it can't be improved. And since things are not improving, that means they are directly degrading, right? And that is the case with business as well. So it's pretty clear, if the business is not growing, that means it's just degrading, because inflation is also there. So now coming to the attribution aspect, so I have kept it in a very simple terms over here, so that everyone can understand it. So there are two lines, purple and green, right? These two lines. So since everyone over here understand marketing, right? That's what I believe in. So, but if not, I'll just tell you about these particular phases as well in a nutshell. So there are these different phases, three different phases primarily: awareness, consideration, and conversion. Awareness is something wherein these users get to understand about the brand. So that's the first touch point. They just get to know about the brand, what that brand is or what the product is offering. And that's the initial awareness phase, wherein you're just made aware about it. Consideration is something where you think of that particular product as something which is meaningful for you, right? You're still not buying, but just having a consideration into place in your mind. And finally, you'll end up either on marketplaces like Flipkart, Amazon, or their website in order to make a purchase or submit a lead in order to get closer to the brand and uh, thinking of buying it. So that's where conversion comes into play, and loyalty is all about the recurring purchases afterwards. Uh, all right. So here, if you see, there are three things which I have covered over here. So I was mentioning about these two visitors. So today, the problem statement for these brands alongside this is something wherein they also need to understand what is exactly working out for their brand in terms of marketing activities they're doing, because there are marketing activities happen in multiple phases, from awareness to consideration to conversion. So in order to understand how exactly the customer journeys are, in order to have the conversion into place, the attribution models helps you. Now there are multiple attribution model like first click, last click, but I'll just cover this particular thing and I'll just give you an example after that. So there are two visitors. One is in purple, another is in green. The first visitor saw your ad on Instagram and visited your website. Now, while the next day, the visitor directly searched you on Google and found out your ad, which was over there, clicked on it, and then landed on your website, added something to the cart, but did not check out yet. So that's the second part. Now, after say a week or so, the visitor directly visit your website through the browser and made a purchase. Now, for a brand, that purchase from a last click perspective would look as if the user had bought directly from the brand, from the site itself, without any effort of the marketing. What that means is during the purchase time, the visitor did not land on the website from any of the ads that were being done. So the visitor came directly. So that's what the attribution is about. I'll talk about it, how to use it, what are the pros and cons of each first click, last click. But first, let me just cover this particular part. So the second visitor is in green. They first saw your ad on Google, might be a display network, and then next time while you were scrolling your Instagram, during that point in time, the visitor saw the ad on Instagram as well and came to the site, added something to the cart, did not check out, and then later on went again uh, just back to the site and then found your ad again on display and then made a purchase. Now, from a last click perspective, it would look like that display something which has worked out pretty well, and followed by these two things. So these are primarily the loyalty part, wherein these two visitors, while they were being sent email notification about some sort of a offering or some sort of a recurring purchase that they could make. So that's where they converted. Now, in order to identify all this, it is very much important to have anonymize the user. Now, what do I mean by anonymous is primarily that here, while the visitor is coming for the very first time on your platform, which is in the awareness phase, during that point in time, you do not know the identity of the visitor in terms of their email address, phone number, etc. Now, since they are anonymous visitors, it's very hard to track these anonymous visitors since they are coming repetitively on your site. You are only able to track them while they are making the conversion. That means while they are submitting the information to you. Now, AQX primarily helps you over here in order to identify these previous visits as well on top of the conversion visits. Now, let me give you an example so that all of you can understand it better. So here we have a brand which is into finance. They primarily have their own small case into place. They run various kinds of ads and they have multiple channels for user acquisition. Primarily, what they do is they generate leads from their website, and then they have a telecalling and a pre-sales team into place which helps them sell their offerings to these users. So here I'll just make you understand all these columns. So first to the source. So source is primarily the marketing channel through which they run ads or do any sort of marketing, paid or free, any which way. The second part to it is the first click. So there are 3105 leads that this brand captured during this duration in May. Now, out of these leads, this was the first click part. What that means is out of these number of leads, 340 came directly on the platform, right? And same goes with organic search. So these many came directly. And at the time of capture, so while they submitted the lead, this was the source. So during that point in time, what was being seen by this brand is direct has a very good traffic in terms of the users who are submitting the lead. Now over here, if you see, direct has the highest, but in the first click, direct has bit low. I would say pretty low in terms of the number over here. So it's hardly 33% of what it is over here. Now, in order to understand what exactly is working out for this brand, how is it performing, you look at the attribution aspect. So blue one is the first click aspect, wherein you can see these number of leads were generated, and this was the first click source. So this was the first touch point of these visitors who actually got converted into leads. Now, blue one, as I mentioned, is primarily the first click part, and red one is the last click part. So red one is at the time of capture. Now, if you see over here, the red one shows that direct has highest number of leads that got captured, second highest number of leads, and it differs a lot from the first click aspect. Now, what this means is these visitors who actually submitted their lead directly to the brand did not actually came directly to the brand, rather they came through some other sources in the first touch point. Now, what these sources were, in order to identify these sources, the first click attribute is very handy, wherein you can clearly see that small case and paid search over here has very good number of visitors who actually submitted the lead in terms of the first click, but only few of them they submitted the lead, hardly 50% over here and almost 60% over here who submitted the lead from a last click perspective at the time of capture. What happened was this attribution that was there with small case and paid search actually went over here in direct. Now, the implication of this particular thing is primarily while calculating the ROI from each channel, it is very hard for brand to understand how exactly to calculate the ROI. In general, how exactly the brand do it is using these red lines, which is at the time of capture. What this leads to is our default error in the calculation that they do of a ROI, because ROI is something which should be calculated basis this, the blue line, for these kind of brands. And attribution models differs from brand to brand. It depends what kind of product you have, what kind of service you have. At times, it might be that it is just first click which you take. It might be the last click. So it depends from category to category. I can't say that there is a straight formula to it. Rather, you need to understand the path of these users while they are visiting. It might take 7 visits, it might take 3 visits, it might take any number of visits for these users to actually convert. But what is more important to understand is primarily, are you tracking these metrics or not? So that's the primarily. And just one more thing which I would like to add on. So today, Sandeep also covered one more part which tells you about the lead magnet. So we do have these things into place wherein we have very enhanced lead magnet sort of a thing. What it does is it have these informations as pre-filled. What pre-fill means is today you build a landing page and have a lead magnet into place. The lead magnet is always having some kind of a pop out and some kind of a form which user need to fill in order to submit the information. With AccuX, since we have a proprietary technology which is able to identify these anonymous visitors, even if they're visiting for the very first time on your platform, what AccuX does is it pre-fills this information for a certain percentage of visitors whom AccuX already know. And once they submit it, then only AccuX share their detail with the brand. So this is one more thing on top of what Sandeep already mentioned about the lead magnet part, which boost up the fresh acquisition for any brand. Any questions? Happy to answer after this call.
Thank you, Paras. So, how about the leakages in these leads? How do you track those leakages from
So
from first lead to ad capture lead? So, how do you track that?
So in order to, so there are a couple of different types of leakages, I would tell. So leakages happens in two form. Primarily, there is a funnel leakage wherein the brand is tracking the conversion optimization, and second kind of
Mm.
leakage happens while you are not able to attribute the sources properly.
Mm.
Right now, in order to have those things into place, identity resolution as a solution that we have is pretty much handy for all these brands, because that is able to very deeply capture the identity of these visitors and is able to actually give you the right indication about the visitors drop off while they are having a conversion journey with the brand.
Mm.
Right, in
Okay.
order to fix those leakages, it is very much important for any brand to understand the industry standard data. So say for example, for a brand working for lead generation into ad tech, right,
Mm.
they get leads, the conversion to demo setup is something around 20%, followed by setup to demo done is somewhere around 40%, followed by conversion is around 35%. So these are the industry standard data that's there. So in order to have these things into place, you first need to understand the benchmarks, and at the same time you need to have those measuring parameter into place, with the help of which you can think of improvising further.
Okay. So, is your system provides that data as well on these
So
leakages?
yes, so we provide leakages data, but at the same time, the industry standard data is something which varies across all industries, across
Okay.
all categories. We do have a
All right.
newsletter in place for that, wherein you get to understand about different standards that are there across different industries.
Right. Okay. All right. So we are now very much reached the timing of our session. It's 7:30 now. There's one question which has come from Charu. I'm just quickly going to pick it up. So there's an interesting formula you shared. I think she's talking about the formula that Sandeep shared. And there's a question: which customer behavior do you think are the top ones that contribute to increased CLTV for a fashion company versus healthcare, as an example?
All right, interesting question. Thanks, Charu, for asking this question. My experience says, when it comes to fashion, if your customer is spending a lot of time in your personalized suggestions, when, for example, a person is browsing through a dress, and you have suggested, some cross product or some upsell product like an handbag or an address accessory, if the customer is kind of spending more time on those, that's a good customer behavior. That's a customer behavior which is mostly like to increase the customer lifetime value in a fashion. Whereas in a healthcare, it's more about, it's healthcare is, I would say, it's an informative industry, right? So if the customer is spending time to understand before the purchase, to understand your your terms and conditions of the particular healthcare product, or the details of the healthcare product, whether it's an insurance or might be a respiratory, for an example. So that is a good sign of a customer behavior, that is that this customer is going to have buy and purchase more from your brand, and and thus will increase the CLTV for you, right? But of course, one thing, if you remember, Charu, which I mentioned, you need to constantly push them to the beginning of the funnels, custom CVO funnel again and again. Only if you do that, so at the end of the day, the mool mantra is make them buy more, and make them buy more frequently and with more value, right? That's where the CLTV is going to increase, because CLTV is, you have to also deduct the customer acquisition cost, and if for an existing customer, you have to every time deduct the cost of the cost of servicing that customer. So that we also have to remember that formula, in that formula when I spoke about. Yeah.
Thank you, Sandeep. And there's another comment from Charu. Good insights, Paras. Thank you so much, Charu, for sharing your question and appreciating what our speakers have shared here. While we have to wrap up our session quickly, I'd like to mention that our next session is going to be on 19th of September, and this is going to be on winning tactics for enterprise deals and sales excellence. And since September is very close to quarter 4, so we'll also talk about certain tactics which are which sales experts deploy in order to meet their target. So we would be joined by a couple of speakers. We will have Sanjay Prasad from TCS, and we'll have Dean, who is an outsourced VP or sales advisor of sales acceleration. So they will be talking, they will be sharing their insights. This link will be shared with you shortly on LinkedIn comments, so that you can you can register for this session and do not miss out the insights that is going to be shared there. But I'd like to thank everyone for joining this session, and especially our esteemed speakers, Dennis, Sandeep, and Paras. Thank you so much for sharing your insights. I'm sure our audience would have taken note of insights that you have shared. These are, very interesting revenue engines which are being used by companies across not only B2B but also B2C. You talked about some certain examples in B2C which are very relevant. So I'm sure our audience would certainly take note of insights that you shared. Thank you so much. And if you have any last comment to share, the platform is yours. Otherwise, we'll just quickly wrap up the session. Thank you. Thank you all. And I'm looking forward to meet you in the next session.
Yeah.
Yes, Paras, you're saying?
Yes. So I was just saying to this audience, I just want to offer first click attribute for next 2 months as a trial for free. So if they want to try it out, I'm happy to give it, because that's how they will know how to measure it and see how exactly it works. So
Awesome. So
happy to have that
we
in
got an
place
offer.
just for this audience. Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you, Paris. Thanks for sharing this
Great.
offer here in this platform. And thank you, everyone, again for joining us. And thank you, audience, for sharing your questions and listening to our speakers patiently. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.